Well, when you want to put a video out and you start out doing it and then you start finding out that it's really you that you're complaining about, that you're starting to see yourself in who you were going to complain about. I just had that. And so I thought, there's no way you can fix other people by there's no way to fix people. I mean, if they can't change themselves, you can't change them. It's and you have opinions about people in the world, and no matter what you say, nothing's ever going to change about that. They're just opinions. You don't know them, and until you really know them up front, you probably, I mean, if you knew them personally, you'd probably get to like them. But if you got to hear their story, you might start to realize why they're in that position. Because the story is what really matters about people. The story that they're see unless you understand the story, unless you understand the context in which they're living, you probably will not understand why they are the way they are, okay? Or why they are uh, and I could have all kinds of opinions, and I could analyze people, and then I could cut them down and put them into little boxes, and as if I was catching butterflies, and I'd say, see, I have this person, he's here, this person's here, and man, he's really, this guy. Collecting butterflies and being able to say that this is in a sense. See, so it's not very effective. I always want to believe that it would be that whatever I'm not capable of, or whatever I haven't been able to knack, um, I don't believe anyone is so far gone that they can't possibly bring some value to the world. It's just that the people around you can't hear you because they have become inured to your. They have developed the inability to trust you. This is actually aimed at a person, and if he's watching this video, is that if you live with someone and you try to express your opinion to them, but they are forced to live with you, it is eventually they're going to develop a big, thick. They'll become distant from you, even though they're there. They're not with you at all. They're not there. And no matter what you say to them, and no matter, you cannot have the interactions that you would expect to have because they've lost interest in interacting with you. They've written you off. And so you will probably never be able to, even though you're living with them, you'll never be able to be on a level where you can even discuss things that are deeper. All you'll be able to do is say, "Hey, how's the day?" It's fine. Saying, "Hey, this is great," and they say, "Yeah, that's about as far as it'll ever go." If you talk about anything deep, they're not going to talk to you about it. The great thing about the internet is you could probably find people that will talk deep stuff about you, but they're not forced to live with you. They can take you or leave you. And when we're in this is something I experienced whenever I was in Alt Space VR, is that it was a great venue. Alt Space VR is a virtual world where people come and talk to each other and stuff. And it's owned by Microsoft. It's fairly simple, and it works. Um, and I had conspiracy theory that Microsoft could use it to eavesdrop on people. I'm just, people just need to realize that these services, you can get pretty deep into them, but you have to keep in mind that the people that own the venue, they could come in and record everything and and review it. Um, it's just a risk. So we're vulnerable all the time on the internet. Anything we say, but it's easier to be vulnerable whenever you feel like they've already got it. You might as well say it to the world, because once you reveal everything about yourself to the world, then what they have is shit, because they can't use it for anything. And then people knowing that they can't blackmail you. Um, that they don't have anything to really pin on you, or to really villainize you for. That it's it's an open book and it's easy to see, and then they'll pretty much leave the matter. And the people that be left behind will want to dig deeper and start to figure out what is being said, such as my videos, and might pull out something inspirational. And that's all I am here on YouTube, is just it isn't trying to inspire, it's trying to inspire, it's for me. At the very least, it was really just for me to get something off my chest. But in the grand scheme of things, some people take it, some people can leave it. It doesn't matter, okay, to me. It doesn't mean I don't care, it just doesn't matter to me whether people can accept me or not. I can take it either way. I don't need the world, just as God doesn't need us. I mean, He can love us, but He doesn't need us, okay? You understand? He can take us or leave us, okay? He can take you or leave you, okay? No matter what you do, no matter what kind of rituals you perform, they're going to get you nothing, because God isn't as stupid as you are, okay? About that. All those rituals and stuff is just you needing to have control over the unknown. And Christians fill it with God, and other people have gods or many gods, or they have other things. But it seems to me that if this Christianity stuff lasts 2,000 years, there's something to it. There hasn't been a whole lot to these conspiracy theories. If they last 2,000 years, there's something to them. But I doubt it. See? It's the integrity of these, it's the integrity of the ideas that determine whether a philosophy is good. There are philosophies that people have defined that seem to represent parts of the world. But someone could always say, any cheap ass heckler could say, "Oh, I've read the Bible." But if you if you haven't read the Bible and they say that, you can test them on it, and they say, "Oh, I don't even remember that," or blah blah blah, And it says, "What about this?" And then, oh, what they're really doing is they're social engineering you. They're trolling you. What they're trying to do is they're trying to manipulate you without knowing shit. And that's, to me, that's all demons are. Is they're basically operations and functions that have been statically written to break people apart, or and um, and break them down and water them down to nothing. You see, but doing it without actually knowing anything about the person. It's 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 a psychological deconstruction of the person, is what they're trying to do. And whether the demon is real or people just have demons because it's a part of their brain, however this thing comes about, these things do exist. And I believe they exist. I believe they are real. I don't believe they're of this world. I believe they're in a parallel existence. There are some people who have claimed that they could um, see demons, or they could see people's souls and see, like, it's possible. I wouldn't be able to prove it, and they wouldn't be able to prove it. It's possible, but that's belief. That if they can't prove it to you, then how could I ever believe it? I would have to go on the grounds of how deep they're getting into it, and if I saw something in it and I'd say, hey, that's really eerie. I like the idea, but at the end of the day, I can go into a dark room and sit in a dark room, and I've never seen a ghost in my life. I've never believed that I've ever, I mean, there have been times where something happens and you hear it, but I don't believe in ghosts. I believe there is, I believe that we're like puppets. And I know in computers what programs really are is just a state of, it's just a state of the representation of, it's kind of the representation of, well, in a computer, when it sends signals over a line, it sends them as either a, a power on or a power off, okay, or a high or a low voltage, and that's how data is sent. It's just the changing of the state of something is all you need to store a piece of information. If you can flip a switch, then that gives you enough idea of whether it's this or that. Okay. And from that you can, and so that, in computer science, storage of information is really just the changing of a state, but at a high density, like a billion of those, or a trillion of those switches. And in that you could store a kind of information, but how you interpret those bits determines what they are. And so you would need a program to actually go in and read that stuff. And there's a lot of knocking around in the next room. Either, I think somebody's in here. Yeah. So that was my mom coming through. I think she had something she needed to get. But that's the thing. So when we die, what happens to our state? What, in a computer, it goes to entropy. It doesn't go anywhere. It completely disintegrates, because the memory in a computer, um, the power ons and power ons offs, the capacitors lose their charge. That's usually how they store information, or at one time they stored it as little capacitors that they put a charge in there, and then you'd have this processors that could go around and read the capacitors and then put more charge into them, like simple capacitors that would only be able to hold a charge for a certain amount of nanoseconds. And that's how memory was stored in chips. It's probably still that way. I don't know. But when you turn the machine off, you've lost all the data in the memory, in the capacitors. Because where does that energy go? It goes to ground. It goes in the ground. Literally, if you take a wire and put it from any electrical thing, you put it down on the ground, like out on the earth or something, and you send that power through that wire, it will probably go into the ground. It will go to ground. And when you hear somebody and they're working on a piece of electronics and they said, "Are you grounded?" What that means is you take a little handcuff thing, you put it on your wrist and a wire, and you put it to the table that you're working at, or some large piece of metal. And if you're working on the computer, if there's any static electricity, it will go into that file cabinet. It won't go into your circuit. And because if the static electricity finds its way to ground through your computer, then it'll destroy some of the components, and you've got a toasted computer. And that's the reason why you have to keep yourself grounded, is so that the static electricity will be more attracted to going through the file cabinet than going through your computer. And so I think that's the idea. And that's my caveat is that I think that's the idea. And so that's kind of opening up so that if somebody wants to say you're wrong, then they can say how. And when they say how, it isn't like you're saying it to somebody who won't take it to heart. If I was that way, I'd say, I don't give a shit what you're saying. You know, that's bad. That means you're not open to opinion. See, the thing is now when we go on the internet, we go to Google and we find our truth through the internet from whatever somebody's posted up online. And so there's a lot of capacity for liars to lie to a lot of people. And if they get a viewership, then it reinforces in their brain with the dopamine of achieving success in getting people to believe your lies, and they become professional liars. And that would be your conspiracy theorist types, you know. They don't have any reference to any solid materials that have been around for a long time, okay? And the Bible is one of the oldest books we have, and it's been around forever. It's been around for 2,000 years, or 1,000 years, because it was made from a canon that was put together by a bunch of texts that were kicking around, basically mail between St. Paul and various churches. But if it wasn't the case, you can talk to some statistics guys, and they would say it'd be highly unlikely that it didn't happen, because a lot of people believe it did. So it's you against the world, whether or not it's real, okay? And the people that are Christians they won't, no matter what you say, you will not get anything word in edgewise. And the reason why is because you do not have any texts that are solid. Science is as solid as you can repeat it. If you can't repeat it, if you can't repeat your findings, then it isn't science, okay? But in the case of belief systems, whenever a text, and the Bible is mostly about psychology than it is about how things work in the world, okay? It's more about psychology. It's more about us, the way we work, not about the way the world works, or the way the earth works, or the water and all that stuff. To some degree, it is, but it's really it's really a circle through which it's like a little window through which you can see kind of the behavior of people. And people could say it was made up of a lot of myths, but I'm like, how are you going to convince a lot of people that you come up with something new and then all of them to believe it and that for it to perpetuate for 2,000 years uh, and not being broken? It's so the thing is that you're going to have a very difficult time convincing them that it's not true. And that's just, religions. But what are the other religions? What are all the religions doing? Look at what their philosophy is. What's the good stuff in it? Does it benefit you? Does it sound logical? Um, does it work? Okay. Not whether it's physically correct. Does the ideas, um, can you find something good? That's the thing is looking for something good in everything. But also because the mystery of that book, try to find if there is something good in it, rather than having external opinions afraid to ever open the book and see what's written in it. And I have that because it does hurt. You go into that book and you see yourself. You see a mirror and you start to see all the shit that you are. And then and you would rather not deal with it. However, there are some things that and I as I the more I look into it, the stuff that I am in it, I start to see that it isn't important. Um, it isn't the sin. The sin is how we cannot by ourselves completely satisfy God. That no matter what we do, we can't convince God to let us into heaven. Okay, but even if you don't believe in that stuff, you could apply it to somebody else. You could say, no matter what you can do, your ex-wife, whom you still love, will never accept you back. She can take you or leave you. You can't build a gateway. You can't build a stairway to your wife, to your ex-wife. Okay, you'll never be able to get there. All you can do is pray that someday she will accept you. Okay, and so that's kind of, in a sense, my view of where I sit with respect to Jesus and God. So I can't build a stairway to that, but I can speak my mind about what I think the texts say and try to look for the best that I can find in them and try to and and when I say it, then somebody can rebuke me and say, well, that's not really what it's saying, and then give me a backstory and give me some other texts and stuff like that. That would help me, and then I would be able to better understand what's being said. But on the very deep end of it, I don't believe that God would want to throw the baby out with the baby out with the bathwater. If you got one or two or three things that you find hard to deal with, put them aside and say, yeah, those are hard things to deal with. There's other things that I can deal with that are so much easier. And I'll deal with those and leave the others to chance that they'll get fixed. You hate doing that stuff. It ends up ruining your relationships with other people. Maybe you'll be able to get over them, but don't feel like you'll be fixed tomorrow, or a year from now, or 10 years from now, or 20 years, or even in this lifetime. You may never get fixed. The the thing is to try to to be satisfied, to unstress, and just avoid trying to control the world. Just trying to relinquish control is what's really difficult for me. And it's I believe that I'll be better once I'm able to completely make myself vulnerable. That is to to humble myself, you know, to actually say I don't have the capacity to deal with this. Okay? And that's what the Christians are. The basis of all that stuff is that is relinquishing control. It's saying I can't control. I I have I have to relinquish control because micromanaging, everybody hates micromanaging. Can you imagine everybody micromanaging each other? We'd hate each other to death. That's the problem we have today is that we're trying to micromanage. We're trying to control the world. We're doing it each in our own way. And we're forcing people into to things. And I do it and everybody does it. And I do it a lot. And I know I do it a lot. And I'm just saying to you that I do it a lot. It isn't that when I do it, I feel really good, and then afterward I feel like a shit. Okay, because I realize that nothing's going to come of it. Maybe, or likely won't. It might inspire one person, maybe not. So what effect am I having really on the world? 4.2K subscribers. How do I know they're even real? Do I even know these people? Would I ever know these people? I'm not saying that you're not real. I'm just saying that how will I ever know you're real? How will I ever be able to know you're real? And that's the thing with the internet is that what I say to people is it's spiraled schizophrenia. You're talking to voices that are on the internet, but what difference would it be if they were on the internet or if they were in your head? Unless they offer some opinion or they become accountable or vulnerable to the point of revealing something about them and their face and all that stuff, they're probably not trustworthy. But you can develop trust and believe that they have a need to help people, just as like you find helpful texts on the internet that, and you'll see similarities between the text in various places written by different people. And that's when you know there's truth. You know that other people have been able to, and so you've been able to figure some stuff out. But the unknown is where we have our fear, is the fear of the unknown. And some people fill it with religion, some people fill it with conspiracy theory. And I'd say the religion is more healthy because it's survived such a long time and people have been able to live their lives by it. But it's conspiracy theories, they're just junk food, you know. They're junk food information, and they sit in the back of your head, and they help you to cope with all the shit you are afraid of, okay, in the world. But that's not good enough, because all that junk food's making you fat, just like the real junk food's making me fat. It's making us malnourished, you know. It doesn't offer any real nourishment because it doesn't have any logic to it that you can test with respect to yourself and the world you're in. It's just great whenever you're having a smoke, you're drinking with somebody, and they've seen the same stuff you've seen and you agree, but that ain't truth. That's you accepting some bit of junk food philosophy that you've both read about. But have you actually been there? No. And is it something that reveals something about psychology? Have you been able to repeat it? So now you're developing a science of behavior, and you'll come to realize that people are not cannot be watered down to simple algorithms. And if we were to do proofs on those algorithms, that we could really trust that they wouldn't break down or go erratic somewhere. And so the thing is if you can't water down people to simple algorithms or proofs, you can't water down people. I mean, you can't fix them. And you'll find out that you're probably more fucked up than they are. That's the problem. That's in the reference to that in the Bible is, don't say to your brother, "Come here, I'll wipe the speck from your eye," when you've got a mote, which is a big old log in your own eye. Remove the log from your own eye so you can remove the speck from your brother's eye. And so I couldn't ever say to somebody who has a problem with masturbation, "I can fix you," because I've got the problem too. Or if somebody has a drinking problem, "I can fix you," because I can't even fix myself. And so that's the thing is that you just have to respect that. I mean, and even if you were able to get rid of all those things, is it now pride and ego that you have the need to fix somebody? So I can fix you and I can show off to all my friends that I fixed you. That's ego. That's pride. That's arrogance and all that stuff. And so that arrogance then turns into, oh, I can fix the whole world. You know. So when I'm talking in here, I'm talking to myself thinking that somehow I'm going to fix somebody. But likelihood of me fixing anybody, and I have to disown it. I have to say I'm not going to be able to do it. And it makes me feel good that I got it off my chest. And the other thing is I don't even know half the time what I'm going to talk about. And after I've said it, I don't know what it is I talked about. It's almost like, I guess, with people that are drunk, they say a lot of shit and then the next day they've completely forgotten it all. It's the same here. The only difference is I am not drunk. I haven't had any alcohol. The last time I drank alcohol was about 5 years ago, whenever my brother was experimenting with alcohol because his wife drinks wine. And at Christmas time, he was urging somebody to try some wine they had and stuff. And then he developed an alcoholism, and then he had to go get clean. So, you know, that was it was kind of like that. And when I was in New York, I went and drank because that was like the only thing you can do in New York is because there's so many bars. And when you're lonely, you're going to go to a place where there are people, and there are people in bars. But there are also people in churches. So which are you going to go to? Or are you going to go to some special interest group? But the thing is which in which of those are you going to get filled? Which is going to fill you? And it may not be at any one of those. I'm not going to say that you have to go to church. I'm saying that you have to look around. You have to be open. I have to be open. So I'm kind of looking at myself. And I'm hearing myself as I'm talking. I'm saying I have to be open, and I have to open the possibility that there is someone out there who reciprocates with me fairly well, but it could be that it's Jesus coming through people that say, I believe what you say is right. I believe that you'll get to heaven. You're fine with me. And then they leave it at that. If it goes any further than that, and they start chatting you up, then you have to wonder if they're a psychopath that are figuring out a way to. And I hate to say psychopath, but I'm just saying that there are people who will take advantage of you, and you just have to understand how to identify the way that they do this. You just have to identify their methods of getting you hooked, okay? And it can be fun a little bit and scary and miserable and mad when you deal with such people. You get happy once you realize that they've screwed you over. You figured out how they did it. You're mesmerized by it, fascinated. But then you think maybe you can control it, and you really can't. It's lightning never strikes twice. Okay, it's in the past, but maybe it helped you to realize. Maybe it helped you to realize the vulnerabilities and possibly ways to avoid getting involved in such things again. The telltale signs, like whenever somebody scams you on the phone and is asking for your personal information, try to do things like, okay, so you say the phone from the phone company, what was my bill last month? Because if they can't recall that to you, that they're not the phone company. Same with Facebook. Facebook will never contact you by telephone because you are not worth that much to them. Okay. In fact, nobody. I mean, they got so much money that interacting with you in that way just doesn't make any sense. Okay. Because you are their you may bring value to their service by being involved with it, but they can take you or leave you. Okay, so unless you're paying for Facebook, you don't have any business relationship to them. You are not a consumer. So if anything happens to your stuff on Facebook and they accidentally lose it, you can't sue them because you likely signed something whenever you came into their service that said that they were free from any of that, you know. But the stuff you reveal on there is not information that theirs. They can't come in and read your content. You have to they have to ensure your privacy, all that. But if your account accidentally gets lost, I mean, what could they possibly do? And who do you sue? And why do you think you can even sue in the first place? It was your own dumb luck to be involved with that service. Same goes with me putting these videos up on YouTube. And so it's kind of like, do I really own a bit of YouTube, or does YouTube own a bit of me? And is this my stuff or is this their stuff? I don't know. But what's the value of me owning what's on YouTube? I mean, do I own any of it? Do I care to own any of it? I spent so much time on it, and I lose it all. Did I lose anything? No. Because when I was talking into the tube, I was developing ideas on the fly. I was learning from the experience of saying. And that's the way I see YouTube, is that it is a collection of information from me, but for somebody to have an opinion of someone like me, they would have to see all the shit I said. Okay. And if it all of a sudden disappears from YouTube and a bunch of people have read it, they're going to put notes together and they'll have a complete idea of what was on YouTube before YouTube deleted it. And they might protest, they might not. Some of them might have copies of the stuff. You could very well easily do it. You just use a Python script called YouTube DL. You can download all the videos off of YouTube, whatever it is, content. I'm planning to do it with 80s music videos because I have a feeling that at some point that stuff will just disappear. That's fairly valuable stuff because when you see it, it reminds you of your youth. You know, if you're from the 80s, it will remind you of your youth and makes you feel young again to hear it. It relieves the tension and the stress. But I think that when I talk in here and if somebody agrees with what I'm saying, then I would hope that it gives them value, that it helps them go forward, that it doesn't, that the stuff I say, if it is a mistake, that to let them know that I have a tendency to ramble on and say things as if they were true and not put disclaimers with everything. So I always say I don't know, for sure, for certain. So that's all I'm saying. And it would be very dangerous to me if the entire world was to change over this stupid stuff. It's not dangerous. I wouldn't believe it. I would be in a state of disbelief, and they would probably put me in a loony ward, and I would be in a straitjacket, and I would just be like completely shell shocked that the world even was that concerned about things that I said, and I'd be like, I'm a complete idiot. Why did everybody take this seriously? You know. But you have to do that. You have to relinquish control. You have to say, what do I know? And just say this is an idea, and then you can go find it and determine whether it's right or correct or not. It says in the Bible that that your works will be tested with fire, and then even if the whole structure burns up, that you'll escape with unscathed with your life. And so the thing is that you just try your best. It isn't all that important what the bounty is. It's just that you're trying.